As a matter of fact, Packers president Mark Murphy says the NFL is debating extending the regular season to 17 games to add international play. The NFL Players Association has been vocal about not extending the regular season. Should the NFL consider lengthening the regular season? Jane.
Before even Jane steps in,
look at this.
I just have to say this because I was laughing.
Sarah? Have you met her?
I was wait, I'm going to let you talk.
Thanks, Kanye.
Yeah. I just have to say, George Atala, Taylor Swift, and the best, NFLPA Assistant Executive Director of External Affairs this morning, upon reading this statement about the 17 games, the international play, ha 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 ha, with the link, and then he wrote, ooh, I needed a good laugh. So, Jane, proceed, knowing this is how they're reacting to this idea.
So let's just say it might be tough to get buy-in from the union. We'll start with that. I mean, I always think that lengthening the season is a terrible idea. And I know that people say, oh, we could take, preseason games off and then add them to the regular season, but the starters aren't playing in those preseason games. So doing that isn't going to benefit. I mean, what we're really looking at is health and safety and benefiting that. That said, I really like the idea of playing internationally. Now, I know that not everybody's crazy about this, but you have the salary cap for the NBA is what, 110 for the team, 110 million, whereas the salary cap for a team in the NFL is 155. And that's considering a 53-person roster versus 14. So the money that they're getting is coming from overseas. The NFL sees this, and of course they want a piece of that money. So fans want it. I have a friend who's in England who wanted to get one of the games in London last year. He dialed into whatever Ticketmaster they use at the first moment he could, and he tries to get one game, can't get it. Next game, can't get it. Got Jacksonville.
So surprised.
So I was like, great. So, but that's the level of interest they have, and I think the NFL would be foolish not to capitalize it. Whether 17 games is the way to do it.
Kate.
If there is a way to get international games that will pass through the NFLPA rather than just a ha-ha-ha LOL, I think it could be the best thing for NFL players. Now, I understand all of the health risks about adding a game. Now, I don't know how you do that. Do you then go and subtract a number of preseason games? And I get that the stars aren't necessarily playing in those, but the added upside of value that we have seen historically about expanding your game internationally could be a huge boon for NFL players. I mean, you go back 25, 30 years, just at the start of making NBA players stars overseas internationally, and their endorsement deals in the NBA were so much less. But now that places like Nike know that when they sign LeBron, not only can they sell so many shoes here, but they open up the markets overseas as well, you're talking about endorsement deals that then have leveraged NBA players to allow them to grab back some of the power within the NBA because they are not solely beholden to the money being paid in contracts.
Right.
The NFL players do not have that. And now, so if there's a way that they can garner more international interest, all of their endorsement deals will go up. And when you do that, and when you create international stars like that, that allows them to come back to the NFL and not be completely tied to each contract that they sign for each team, and they can take back some of the power. So I know that's looking a long way down the road, but at some point, the NFL players are going to have to figure out a way that they are okay playing overseas, perhaps a game, because they need to develop the game. That's the last big space for expansion for the NFL. It has absolutely devoured the U.S. market.
But are we talking about just like the superstars in this scenario? Like Tom Brady, the rich are going to keep getting richer because internationally they'll all see, oh, we want Tom Brady. But what about all the other guys? What about all the other players?
Take the NBA model. LeBron James is the one who's getting the huge endorsement deals. And yet LeBron James and his popularity is fueling a rise of salaries for all NBA players. Most NBA players are not being paid millions of dollars because everybody's tuning in to see them. They're being paid to play alongside LeBron James, who they're tuning in for. And the more the NFL can do that, the higher everybody's salaries are going to rise.
Like, that absolutely makes sense for the players, for the league. For fans, I think it's still a toss-up, right? A lot of fans don't want their team going abroad to play, even if it was an added game that they don't necessarily miss out on. And that's been the real sticking point so far. Is there's so few games already. There's only 8 home games. So if you're giving up one of those to another country, that's a really big loss of finances for the team and for the fans themselves who miss out on that one game.
And those games aren't that great when you're watching them on TV.
Well, yeah, exactly.
The quality.
So I understand the fans being like, and then people start floating the idea of the Super Bowl being held in an international. Everyone, what? That's so un-American. American, right? So I get that, but and your point is right, that besides fans maybe not being that down with this, it's great for the players in the league if it expands and globalizes the game. The problem for me is that it's very difficult to reconcile those two sides of we don't want to give up a game with understanding how much we're studying the deleterious effects of the game. If we're focusing on how dangerous and unhealthy this game is, and we're doing our best whitewashing job to make sure no one really looks that closely at how this game is affecting the future health of the players, and the NFL's trying to do all the magic tricks over here to talk about other things so that we don't solely look at this. The only way to do this without making fans angry is to add more games. But you can't do that when everyone's focusing on this. They're already having enough problems with the Thursday games in saying, really, you're mostly focused on our health, and then you're giving us games Thursday, Sunday, Monday. You know, so to me, I think while I understand your argument, and it 100% makes sense for the league and the players, no one yet has been able to float an idea that really allows you to make this decision without saying boldly and without question, we don't care if this is bad for them. Well, we care about the money.
What they have to do, what the NFL has to do, if they really want to do something like this, is they have to make a bold change when it comes to a guaranteed contract, when it comes to upping the salary cap, expanding rosters, when it comes to health and safety and trying to make the game a little bit safer. I know that they are definitely trying to do that. The effect when you have a player like we just spoke about with a lacerated kidney on the field, when you have concussions, when you have players with concussions being sent back into the game, is that it's very, very difficult to imagine a 17 or 18 game season being any better for these players or being, you know, less damaging. I mean, it's a brutal season as it is. You would have to find a way to try to make it better for the players if you're going to do that. The NFL trying to do this on the cheap isn't going to work. Well, and that's the way they've been trying to do it so far.
The only way that the players will be in on this is, first of all, if they can see the long-term effects, and which the ones playing right now might never feel. Right? So they are probably less willing to devote their bodies to something that's going to pay off for players in another generation that isn't them. But, you know, usually the thing that sways people to do things that aren't good for them is money.
Right.
So they do have a shot of convincing players to up the number of games in the schedule simply by laying out the same thing that has allowed them to play in the first place, right? The same thing that brings guys to football over and over again on the high school level, on the collegiate level, on the NFL level, despite being told to their faces how terrible it can be for them.
How would the NFLPA feel, ha 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 ha, if the league came to them and said, you know what, we'll give you neutral arbitration and money. Maybe the 18 games doesn't seem like such a bad idea after that.
In 5 years, 2021, is this going to happen?
I love all your hypotheticals.
That's what I do. I just throw out
like,
random.
Will Andrew Luck be better than Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Thanks, Carrie.
I'm hot take over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it 2021?
Will what?
Will it be a 17-game season? Will we see an international game into the written into the regular schedule?
I don't think by then it'll be written in and codified the way we're talking about now, but I do think we will see threefold the amount of international games. I think there will be that progression. But
so you think the league is more likely to have more teams do those one-offs that take away from their home schedule than
I think they have to have a better plan about how they're going to monetize all of it and get buy-in from the players before you're going to codify it
and from
into
the
a
teams,
17.
Right?
Yeah,
to
and the
say
teams.
that we're not going to keep
players.
sending you over there, and then other teams don't have the same, what many would consider punishment or, you know, negative toward the flow of their season and their home fans and everything else. How do you do that without having it have to be a requirement of every team?
Right, because right now it's baked into the 16-game schedule, and there's no necessary upside for the players in terms of profits and exposure, only to a small degree right now in playing those games overseas, especially when they're baked in a way that makes them inferior quality-wise. So they're going to have to test it out and find out a way to get those games overseas and get them to be minimal health impact for traveling that far and maximum exposure and profit for the players so that they can then get buy-in for something longer term.
I wouldn't be that surprised if it was in place by 2021.
I think it's going to happen.
The train is rolling, and we've already seen so many kind of big-scale changes in a short amount of time in the last couple years in terms of international play and whatever. I wouldn't be surprised.
They have an office in London. They have deals with stadiums overseas. I think you're not laying that groundwork there if you don't have big plans.
Oh, we just got a tweet from Georgia Tall. He said, "Ladies, LOL."
I think they'd have to make huge concessions, but if they're really devoted to it,